My name is Eitan Chatayat and welcome to I'm That podcast, where I get to talk to some pretty incredible people. Some are friends and colleagues, some are clients, and some are people I haven't even met yet. On I'm That, we'll hear from them about who they are, what they do and why, stuff they love or hate, mistakes they've made, victories they've had. They're all known for something, but by the time we're through, the hope is they'll have revealed some things we didn't know about them. Our talk may be deep, profound, funny, who knows really. One thing for sure, it'll be interesting and honest. So if you're up for that, thank you for joining me on I'm That, and here we go. Welcome, Jacqueline. It's so nice to have you on the show. I'd love to introduce to everybody what an amazing guest I have, an incredible soul, an incredible spirit, but I'm going to read out your bio because it's just unbelievable. So Jacqueline is the president of TechUK and the co-chair at the Institute of Coding. Jacqueline's a non-executive director on the board of the United Kingdom's Rightmove and is on the board of CoStain, which is all about solving the United Kingdom's infrastructure problems. She also sits on the board of the FDM Group, which is a professional services provider. She's a business mentor at Merrick, an advisor to the board of Accelerate Her, and a supporter of the Girl Guiding Association for Technology Transformation. As if that wasn't enough, in 2016, she entered the Computer Weekly Hall of Fame after being voted Computer Weekly's most influential woman in IT in 2015. She's listed on the Debrett's 2016 500 People of Influence, and she's been named in Europe's 50 Most Inspiring Female Role Models for 2017. And as if that wasn't enough, to top it off, Jacqueline was honored as CBE for services to international trade and technology in the Queen's New Year Honors List 2018. And Jacqueline has said, if we are to thrive in a digital future, we must ensure that we have all of our voices heard when it comes to designing technology. If we do not, we risk creating a world which is for the few and not for the many. Wow. Jacqueline, just welcome and thank you for being here on my first ever podcast.
I'm so excited to be here, and I love the fact that this is all new to you, and that our relationship is so amazing and born out of lockdown, and just great to be here. All because you made that amazing video, by the way.
Wow, thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Well, you're amazing. I'm going to start this off by asking you a question. Really right before we begin or to begin. And the question goes like this. Can you please just complete this sentence for me? I'm that
advocate for diversity and inclusion.
Advocate for diversity and inclusion. So you have to tell all of us a little bit more about that, because I know you believe very strongly in that. What does that mean? I do.
Well, I think because I've spent my whole life in technology, which is arguably a very male-dominated profession. We have somewhere between 18 and 19% of women in tech and 10% in cyber, 6% are engineers. It's very low numbers. And I worry that if we don't have all our voices around the table when we are building technology, we are going to create a world that doesn't work for everyone. So think about it. If an algorithm is going to decide whether you get that job interview, that place at university, that loan, we'd better make sure that we've got diverse voices building that technology, because it won't reflect the society that we try to serve. And I think that's why diversity really matters. Of course, it's also a noble cause, and of course, diverse teams make better business decisions 87% of the time. But the fact that we are so dependent on technology now, and the pandemic has really made it so that we are much more dependent on tech, that we've got to make sure the tech we use is responsible and built by everyone for everyone.
So why you? I mean, why has this become your calling? I've been curious about that for a while since we've gotten to know each other. Like, I know what you stand for, but why you?
Okay, so my first answer is going to be, if not me, then who? So I'm just going to put that out there. In terms of diversity, I think the greatest threat to diversity is the belief that somebody else is going to fix it. and that we all have a part to play to be that little bit more inclusive when faced with someone who's a bit different, eats differently, works differently. It's really important that we all understand we have a part to play. But I think outside of that, I've experienced some of the worst cases of misogyny, I would say, inside my tech career. I mean, in 1999, I went up for a promotion and I was up against a male colleague, and he got the job. He had 30 times less experience than me, 30 times less responsibility than me, and he got it. And when I asked for feedback, I was told, Jacqueline, we simply don't put women on the leadership team. And you know what? I was quite shocked that someone had said that out loud. But on the other hand, there's always a miracle, isn't there? And even though I had to dig for this miracle quite deep, what I said to myself was, well, at least he told me. Because you know what? If I'd been banging my head against the glass ceiling for another 5 years, I think I really would have been upset.
So what happened when, I mean, first of all, shock and horror, I imagine, when he said that, but it's not something that I imagine came as a surprise. Maybe it came as a surprise how blunt and forthright he was about it, but how did you deal with, like, my blood would have been boiling, and I'm a man. I really can't imagine someone saying that to me. And I certainly can't imagine what it felt like. Was that kind of like the moment that it was the moment?
Yeah, I think it was actually. I mean, I resigned, actually. I don't think I was angry. I'm not an angry person per se. I always feel there is a shorter route to success, and I just don't carry that stuff around with me. I felt I needed to go and find my own job as a managing director somewhere else, which I did, by the way, and promptly got imposter syndrome because I didn't know what a managing director did. But I think it set me on my journey, and that energy that I could have used as anger, I just repurposed as something which powered me forward, frankly. And that was the effect it had on me. I don't tend to use anger as a way forward.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of your background and just, the highlights, your career to date. And I mean, I know I introduced you, but there's nothing like hearing it from you. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself before we get to some more questions.
Yeah. So, well, I'm half Chinese, half British. I grew up in a small seaside town in the south of England, and the Garden of England, we call it. And my mother was married to my Chinese father. He was a very violent man, actually. And so I spent my childhood trying to be invisible. My mother bore the brunt of that, and she had a black eye every week. So, when you're a child trying to be unseen, it's a very different childhood to lots of others. And we ran away. We were given money by the Catholic priest to run away when I was 6. And then my mother remarried when I was about 8 or 9. And she married my stepfather, who was not a terribly well-educated man. He was a carpenter. And he was overly interested in me in not a very fatherly way. And that made my childhood pretty miserable until I got to the age of 16, actually. And I came home with my exam results, very excited for this envelope. And he ripped it out of my hand and said, "What's this?" I said, my exam results. And he ripped them open. And I did rather well at school because I felt safe at school. And he said, "You've got 8 A's, 9 A's and a B, something like that. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to show me up?" And for a kid who's just kind of flown under the radar all of her life, and then suddenly to be confronted with this, it felt like a fork in the road, which was saying to me, I could be like you and remain unseen, or I could show you how much potential I can unlock. And I have to say, I spent my whole life trying to show my stepfather what amazing things I could achieve. And when you read out that roll call of things that I've achieved in my life, it wasn't always like that. And I think when you build that sort of independence, you know there's no one to rely on. When you build that resilience, you know you're best when you're in a corner because you're a survivor. And those things I took with me, and I learned how to get through life in a really, independent and resilient way. And that stood me in good stead, actually, until I started work.
So that motivation that you had, is this the adult Jacqueline looking back and it's kind of like in hindsight, or was that something that as you were going through what you were going through and building your career, is that something that was it conscious? Was it subconscious?
Well, good question. I did a lot of self-development when I was 18 on, my getting rid of my baggage and just trying to figure out who I was and why I was here. So I think I did work through quite a lot of that at age 18 up until about 30. And then, I don't know if I called it all the things I've just called it, but I did know there was no one else to rely on. And I did know it was just me. So I relied on my own resources to get where I needed to go. And I found myself a, place at university. I was the first in my family to go to university, and I went to Germany, actually. It was the furthest place I could think of. And came back to London and was offered a job in technology recruitment. I definitely believe that great leaders are ones where vulnerability is an asset, is your fortress, if you will. I think it gives other people space to step up, to step in, space for them to be amazing, space for you to step back and say, you don't have all the great ideas. I'm not going to lie and say there wasn't a period in my life where I was pretty alpha in the way I led teams, the way I drove, the energy in my team. But when you cross the chasm from manager to leader, there is something about giving the floor to someone else, just creating and holding the tension so that you can lift other people up. It's so much more fulfilling. And actually, it's the only way to scale an organization because you can't have your fingerprints on everything. And I learned that when I started to get into bigger and bigger businesses. And I think at that point, I understood that sharing my story was something that would energize other people and also help me not to drag it around as baggage. So I'm going to say I think that was probably in the 15 years ago, something like that. So a few grey hairs do help you to be more confident in being more honest, perhaps, about your life and your story and how much of it you want to share.
It's funny listening to you say that. You give. And I, from experience, I in a different way, having made a film or two that resonated with the Jewish people or with women, other things that I've done, it's the feedback that I get, it's the responses that I still get to this day, the gratitude, not like, oh, thank you, but like the feeling that you've really made a difference. And I kind of hear that in you.
It's funny, isn't it? I went on a 10-day hostage negotiation course. It's all about nonviolent communication. And I went because my husband and I met the Dalai Lama very briefly in Brussels. And not as grand as it sounds, it just was a moment. And he said, you should meet my friend Godfrey. And we trotted off to meet his friend Godfrey, because who questions the Dalai Lama? Anyway, he was holding this course called Nonviolent Communication in a workshop, and then another 10-day course in France that he was part of. And it was the most mind-blowing 10 days I've ever spent looking at what makes people tick, how language matters, and the top two things that people need in a situation which is tense or, at odds with each other. Two things. One is humans need to be heard, really listened to. And secondly, that they have a massive need. We all have a massive need to feel significant. And it's so freeing to be in meetings, which could be board meetings, they could be, slightly edgy conversations with my husband in the kitchen. And then okay, he needs to be heard. He needs to feel significant. And it's just so amazing when, as a leader, as a human, you get to understand that and put yourself in the position of giving people the floor to be who they need to be and giving them that pause for reflection.
I feel that this podcast could be like 5.5 hours. I have some questions there, and I'm just going to get to them because I have so many that are not on the list suddenly. But I do want to ask you a couple of things. And I want to ask you, and it can be personal or professional or what have you, but like, what's the most difficult thing you've ever had to do?
Gosh, that's a question, isn't it? Probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, I think, is letting someone go from a job that really matters to them. And I say that in the plural because I've had to do it a number of times. I'm a troubleshooter for fast-growing tech businesses. So, it's not always easy to maintain the team ad infinitum. So, people that I have really liked and enjoyed and loved, I've had to let go. And I think that that's really hard because, I understand that I'm impacting people's lives. And I like to do that with dignity. And that's not always an easy thing to do. So that, I would say, is really difficult. But it does teach you compassion as a leader. It does teach you to be, kind and thoughtful about their next future, of course.
I was going to ask you if there's any wisdom you can share, but I guess that's it right there. Compassion and kindness and hearing people and all the things that you've said and making them feel seen in a very traumatic experience for them.
Yeah.
That is difficult. What are you good at? Like, what are you really good at? What are you really amazing at?
I am great at creating moments, creating memories with our family.
Ooh.
So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Christmas time, I will create a calendar event for the forthcoming year. So, of course, they'll get gifts and things, little gifts. But actually, the big gifts, the big moments are when we as a family, we can, come together on 8 to 10 dates a year. And one might be, a yoga class under the skeleton of the blue whale at the Natural History Museum in London, or a baking class together, or we went to an Ed Sheeran concert. Also, it was just so magical, and Andrea Bocelli was singing too. Just creating those magical moments, and we call our WhatsApp group, our family WhatsApp group, is called Magical People, and it's all about sharing magical moments together. And I'm good at that. And we are good at that as a family, at creating that magic, that moment. And bear in mind, I'm a stepmom. So I have two sons, our grown-up sons from my marriage to Roger and Stephanie, who's my daughter. And being a step parent for both Roger and I, it's not straightforward. And so we have spent 2 decades making absolutely sure that we have created this impossible to break nucleus of a family. And the best thing that ever happened to me was when my stepsons gave me a Mother's Day card, because that was the moment I really felt I'd made it. I'd really achieved it. I'd really earned my stripes. And you know what? It is, if you ask me what I'm really good at, I'm really good at bringing family together. Family is everything to me, and family, team, community. And so I hold that very dear as something.
You know, that's just, you know, you can't help but think about your background and where you came from and how broken that was. And yet here you are saying the things that you say and doing the things that you do. Does it come naturally to you? Is it something that that you decided, I'm not going to have that. I'm going to have something else?
You know, my fear of failure is so high that I definitely worked really hard at this. So I was absolutely, if I was sure of anything, it was that I was not going to have my kids feel like their home, their family life was broken. That was not going to happen for me. And so we've, you know, together we've all worked really hard, and I cherish that.
You mentioned right now your fear of failure. And I, just looking at you, I'm just like, this woman can't really fail at anything. But do you still have that? I mean, I would expect that, okay, that it comes with a lot of pros, obviously. And I think I suffer from the same thing. But at the same time, so it's got lots of pros and lots of cons. But is that something that you've learned to handle? Because it can be amazing, but it can be pretty debilitating as well in many ways, for me at least. But like, I'd love to hear about that fear of failure thing.
Yeah, I think I reframe it as, is there any failure anymore? I think there's only success or learning. And when I reframe it as learning, I tend to, you know, if you ask me a question, what have you failed at? I probably wouldn't be able to answer it, because I would have learned something, and I would not class it as failure. So I think that's quite interesting and amusing as well. Do I feel, though, that I'm sometimes going to be found out? Yeah, all the time. Am I immensely frightened of failing? Yes. Does it stop me doing things like take risks? No, it doesn't. But it does make me prepare probably more than the average human.
That's an answer.
Yeah, you know, and I'm a double checker. I very few things tend to go wrong because I don't have room in my life for that. I don't have time for it.
So people can't see you because this is going to be audio, but you look incredible. You're very put together. You have these great glasses. You got the necklace, and your room behind you is just, you're very put together. And I imagine you're like hyper organized. And I'm a Virgo, so I'm you know, one of my business cards says, you know, long live deadlines. And I'm super process oriented with the creative crazy side as well. Are you just like a very organized person?
I am very organized, but you know, one of my amazing role models and icons is Audrey Hepburn. And what I love about her is she always manages to do things that are effortlessly elegant. And I learned very early when I started to watch her films and I started to learn about her as a humanitarian, because she's got so many sides to her, that she just does everything effortlessly, elegantly. And I wanted to be like that as well. And that's what I strive for.
Well, okay, now I know, because you are, again, doing really well. I mean, even your hair right now, it's like people can't see. It's a little disheveled, but it's disheveled perfectly. It's like you've got, I'm hyper aware of these things. So, and actually one of my questions were and you started this already, so let's continue. Who are the 1, 2, or 3 people who have influenced you, who have most influenced you, who you look up to, who you respect, who are role models to you, or who just, you know, turn you on with what they bring to the world?
Yeah. Well, as I said, Audrey Hepburn for sure. Not because she was beautiful as well, clearly, but that she was a massive ambassador for children, for those children from very poor countries. She was a big humanitarian. And, I just love the way she just led her life. So Audrey Hepburn would be number one. Number two, my mother, who is the most extraordinary person. She has come through a life so battered and bruised and come out the other end a glorious mum, glorious human. She now sadly has dementia, and I see her every couple of weeks now, thankfully. And it's just to look at someone who has suffered so much, but has come through all of that without feeling bitter, with a sense of humor, with that sense of family, just extraordinary, and so much love there. So she would be my number two. I think my number three would probably be my daughter, because she's feisty, she's small, but she's fierce, and she's so incredibly confident and worldly wise, climate oriented, generous, very family oriented as well, and just the person that you want to fall in love with all day long. So
how old is she?
She's 28.
Wow.
Yeah, 28, and she was an actor, so she was in musical theatre, performed in Fame, touring, and then pandemic hit. She fired her agent and she turned her hand to well-being and is an amazing warrior fitness coach. So yeah, she's battering me at least 4 to 5 times a week in the gym.
As she should.
As she should.
I wish she'd batter me, because I need to get in shape. It's terrible. I'm just sitting down too often in this seat here.
Yeah.
You had said also before what you're very good at, and of course I'm going to ask you what you're absolutely awful at.
I'm awful at putting my phone down.
Yes.
My need to be connected, to know what's going on, is just insane. And yeah, I'm terrible at that.
And worse now, right? With everything that's been happening with the pandemic and being stuck at home.
Yeah. I mean,
have you tried to some type of a smartphone intervention? Have you tried to kind of, because I did that around 2 years ago and actually wrote an article. I don't know if I sent it to you. If I didn't, I will. And it was picked up by Quartz Atlantic, and they ran an article about how I tried to wean myself off smartphone addiction, which I managed to do. And then kind of like it got, digressed a little bit. And then this happened, and I'm just like, it's like glue. It's stuck to my hand again, and I hate it.
Yeah. I don't know if I hate it, and therein lies the problem. I quite like it.
Oh.
But I am married to a man who is trained as a yoga and meditation teacher. So we do meditate every day, and that's very helpful. That does help me to clear my mind.
Does he kind of like nag you to get off your phone? Is he like, get off your phone? No, he doesn't. He doesn't tell you what to do. No, he's really smart. Wow, he is smart.
He's really smart. He's more subtle than that.
I have to get your husband on the show, I think.
Definitely.
So it is hard. It is hard with the phone. It is hard. Well, as long as you're enjoying it, I guess, if you don't have that issue, then you're lucky, because I have the guilt.
Yeah, no, I don't have that. I don't tend to create bad karma around stuff or bad energy. I just embrace it. I would like more battery power. I've got the biggest, baddest iPhone, and I still run out of battery.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God! So you must be on it all the time. So wait, so let me ask you one other question, which goes back a little bit to what we were talking about what you do. So I imagine when we read off your accomplishments and what you're doing, it's not easy to understand what it is that you do in your everyday life. How are you? What are you trying to change right now? And please go into as much detail as you'd like, because I think that's something really important for people to hear. Because you are an advocate, you are an activist, and you're a doer. So what is it that you are doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am more of a tapas girl than a full English. So I have multiple roles, and I dip in and out of different board activities, and I mentor the leaders of very large businesses as well. But, you know, what I'm doing right now is I'm thinking about, probably there's never been a better time to be a woman or a minority voice in tech. And so many opportunities are opening up. And I think as we start this year in the shadow of COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, the rise of incredibly disturbing geopolitics as well, you know, the world is demanding a level playing field for all. And this is our moment to push for change at company level and at personal level, so that everyone understands they have a part to play, but also that companies can really build diversity into the heart of who they are versus a tick box of what they do. You know, I believe that diversity isn't something that you do. I believe that diversity is something that you are. And we need our leaders to be inclusive, so that when, you know, people talk about, I don't know, diverse hiring techniques, for example, and you might add on, yes, and I might like a minority person here. Or you might say, well, instead of looking at this very specific sector and this very specific set of skills, you might say, I don't mind about the sector, and actually will broaden out the skill set. Because the moment you change from very specific to broader, then you're being diverse by definition. So I'm encouraging companies to create manifestos for change in that area. It's very, very important that we also have role models on the hiring panels, and that we encourage our young people, young women, to take STEM subjects. You know, I spend a lot of time talking to schools and talking to influencers like parents and teachers, because, you know, if we were, for example, putting together a football team for the country, we'd be scouting for talent at age, 6, 7, 8. But in tech, we expect them to rock up fully formed at age 18 plus. And we really need to think about how we influence young girls into science, technology, engineering, and math much younger. And that's why I work with the Girl Guides, so that we create STEM badges. And that's why...
What is that? STEM?
So STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. Mm-hmm. So this is, for example, in the Girl Guides, they have lots of badges that they can earn. And we've got science, technology, engineering, maths badges now, where you can, for example, earn a badge which teaches you about consent online. So Stay Safe Online badge. You've got other badges that go right up to Let's Learn About AI and Ethics. You know, so it's so exciting to get girls involved in a place where they feel safe, a place where they feel that they can learn easily, and it's fun and voluntary, and it's not mandatory. So I think that's really, really important. But also on the parents, I think, you know, just challenging the pinkification of everything. And I use that word, you know, when you go into a t-shirt, a shop that sells t-shirts for kids, you know, the pink one says, make the world a prettier place. The blue one says, genius. I mean, you know, that has to stop. And I don't want the world to become, you know, vanilla. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is that, you know, pink and blue jobs and pink and blue t-shirts are, you know, not where we're going to create influence for kids in the right way.
So the leaders of the companies that you speak to, the influencers, the parents, what's the consensus there? I mean, is everyone, I mean, I would imagine, again, and I don't want to assume that, of course, everyone's on board, everyone wants that, but is that the case?
Well, the physical universe doesn't lie, does it? So I think perhaps when you get them one-on-one, yes. And then do they make a different choice? Possibly. But we still see a lot of this stuff in the shops, on the shelves. And until we have a real concerted effort not to buy this stuff, I think the supply will keep coming.
So if people want to learn more about this, like myself, I'd love to know, and I think people would want to hear where they can find out more, just to get better educated. So are there any references, or one or two even, that you could just like point people to?
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly think there are, we can put some links into the podcast, actually.
Sure.
That could really help. But I think there's, certainly in the UK, we have a lot of organizations that are focused on STEM for girls, like the STEMette, for example, which helps young girls to get into technology and technology subjects. So I think there are, and Code Club for girls, Code First Girls. There are so many opportunities, probably quite national, but I think it's worth putting the links in, because these assets are good for parents as well as for children.
For sure. I'd love to. I think that would be great. So tell us, what is it that, bit of a segue here, a bit of a non sequitur, but is there something that absolutely no one knows about you, that people would be surprised to know about you? And you've got your interview, you've got your public persona, but what is it that people would be surprised to find out about you?
People probably wouldn't know that I've got 6 gold medals for Irish dancing.
No. 6 gold medals for Irish dancing. Like, is that kind of like Lord of, like the clickety-clackety Lord of Dance type of...
yeah.
What was his name, the guy?
Michael, Flatley.
6 gold medals.
Yes. Now, can I just say, I got them when I was much younger.
Doesn't matter. So, they're still gold.
Well, this is what happens when you have, I was the only half Chinese child, apart from my brother, in a very Catholic school where they were all Irish with lovely ginger and red ringlets, and I had black plaits right down to my bottom. It was so funny, but. The Catholic school had Irish dinner ladies in the playground, and we used to learn in the playground all the time. It was so fun.
Wow. Well, I'll let you know a little secret, that I was almost a professional dancer.
Wait, how can you be almost a professional dancer?
I used to love to dance, and I was okay at it. And and there's a group here, one of Israel's premier modern dance groups, called Vertigo. They're amazing, by the way. When you come to Israel, and you will one day, Jacqueline, I'll take you to one of their shows. They're incredible. And I got to be very good friends with the choreographers, and in fact, one of the lead dancers became one of my closest friends. And I was considering going to audition and become a professional dancer. And I decided not to. I decided to go to America and do a master's degree in communications. So, but there was a moment. I still love to put the music on and dance a little.
And what kind of dancing and what kind of music are we talking about, actually?
Funk. It's got to be funk. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. In fact, by the way, and this is maybe an opportunity to say that the music for the jingle for this show, which you didn't hear, but hopefully once I edit this, it'll be in there. The music was made by Lisa Coleman, who was one of the musicians for Prince in his band, The Revolution, which is funky. And she also actually made with Wendy Melvoin the music for the film She's That Woman, which is how we met. So funk, definitely.
Oh, that's so exciting. I do rather feel we ought to see a clip of that attached to the podcast, no?
Well, I don't know. No, this is you. This is you, Jacqueline. We got other places to show that. But I want to ask you, because I'm just cognizant of the time. What's coming up next for you? I mean, you're doing such amazing things, but I imagine that there must be something up your sleeve. What's next for you?
So I'm working hard on making sure that whilst we are creating and innovating, we believe post-pandemic as a country that technology will be at the heart of economic recovery. And so that's something that at TechUK we're working really hard to make sure that we bring all the small, medium enterprises with us, so the small companies. I don't know if your listeners will know this, but 66% of all jobs in the UK are created by small companies in our country. So we've got to power up the nation with all of the corner shops, all of the small traders. And so, our job is to poke the Chancellor in the eye and create conditions for them to thrive. And he's got a great package of recovery coming out in September, which is exciting. But whilst we're innovating and creating all of this tech and making sure that we are a leader in AI and data analysis and science and all of those things, we also need to make sure that we protect the IP around it and protect the innovation. So I'm working quite hard in that area at the moment to make sure that we don't get that drain out of the country and that we can leverage it and start to scale up some much bigger companies inside the country, which we tend to sort of let them go when they get to a certain size. And I suppose that happens to a lot of smaller geographic countries because of the market size. But scale up, I think, is where it's going, and securing the IP.
What else?
Creating lots of magical experiences for my family post-lockdown. I mean, honestly, we just haven't seen enough of each other. That's going to be really high on my agenda.
I was expecting you to say when we said what's next, like travel, get out of here, go somewhere.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, on travel, I have breaking news. So my husband and I have been so frustrated about not being able to go anywhere that we've reconciled that we will be in the country this year, probably next as well, who knows. But we've bought a camper van.
No way.
So, and
a Winnebago type camper van?
No. It's 5.4 meters long. But the gating factor for me was it had to have a loo and it had to have a shower, which it has. And I'm so excited because we've got underfloor heating, we've got solar panels, we can go off grid and do wild camping. And we can go anywhere in the United Kingdom.
That is amazing. And you actually have made me very envious, because that's one of my dreams, to go camping with my family in a camping van. I would love to do that. Well, when's your next trip? Have you kind of thought like when you might, because I want pictures, Jacqueline.
Yeah, we're going to send pictures. We don't pick it up until the 9th of April. And we haven't told the kids yet, so that'll be a surprise. And we're desperately excited because we want to take our 2-year-old grandson on a road trip, which would be just deep, deep, deep joy.
That is amazing. Wow. What a wonderful way to wrap this up. Camper van, Jacqueline. What can I say? I feel so blessed that I know you, and I'm so grateful for us being in touch. I mean, for people listening, you truly are a remarkable woman. You're a remarkable human being, and you're very inspirational. I don't know you that well, but I feel like I do. So I want to say thank you, Jacqueline de Rojas. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but there's the thumbs up. Good. Thank you so much for being on I'm That, and you're just like you're great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for everything you do as well, because we need man-ambassadors We really do, to lift us all up.
Happy to be one. Okay, thanks, Jack.